Hey dollhouse people, Whitney LaBrie here, and this week is going to be a fun week. I'm going to be doing brick, I'm going to be doing a joint compound wall, so we're going to be adding some really fun textures to this pub, and I think you're going to love it. So comment below and let's get started.
Okay, so here's where we ended up last week. I did the floor, built the bar, and we did some walls. And so this week what we're going to do is I'm going to focus on those top walls, and I want to do brick. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to use clay. I need to pre-make the bricks with the clay before I put them up here on these pieces. So I want to make sure that the right sizes. So I'm just going to take some regular white paper and I'm going to make stencils out of those by just holding them up to the walls and making stencils with a pencil and then cutting them out. Super simple. Then I'm going to go over and I'm going to grab my wax paper, my handy dandy rolling pin, my little brick roller, which I got online, and some little fancy tools. These are actually used for fondant, but we're going to use them here. I also am going to need my stencils and my handy dandy DOS clay in gray. So now I'm going to roll out my clay, and I did it between two pieces of wax paper so it wouldn't stick. And then I just roll out that brick roller and makes these amazing brick walls. Then I lay my stencil down and I cut it out. And I did that with all three sides, which in this case I'm doing 3 sides. Okay, now I set those aside, but I'm not allowing them to fully dry. So I am not going to let these dry before I put them up. And the reason is because if there's any size adjusting that I need to do, it of course will be much easier to do when the clay is wet versus when it is dry. And I will tell you though that if it does dry and you do need to make some adjustments, this clay right here, I've rolled it out so thin that it would actually be fairly easy to sand away if I needed to do that, but this is much easier to do it this way. Okay, and being careful not to squish it too much because I don't want it to, deform it too much. A little bit is okay because it's kind of supposed to be like an old English pub, and so over time brick can kind of sag a little bit, so some sag areas are great and actually it'll make it look much more realistic, but we don't want too much and we certainly don't want big fingerprints stuck in the clay. And then we're going to do the other side, and I'm going right over my wiring, and I made a hole for my light to stick through. And now I'm going to do the other side, and on this side I did not add any wood pieces to the base. I'm doing the whole wall in brick. Now I have this other scrapbook paper, and it has like a world map on it, and I just love the way it looks. I really do. It's got great color. It's got like an old world charm to it. And my initial plan, I was going to put it up on this one slanted wall that's to the back here. But once I put it up, I wasn't feeling it. So I'm not going to use that. In fact, what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to do joint compound on that wall also. But first I'm going to paint these bricks. So I take my gray and I do a base coat in the gray. And you can see that I'm taking a paper towel and I'm wiping off the extra because this gray is really for the purpose of being the grout lines, and I don't really need it to be too thick on top, and I wanted that to really be able to absorb the red color that I'm going to use. So I use Red Rook in this for the bricks, which is not a true red, it's like a burgundy red, because obviously I don't want it to look like a Christmas chimney. I want it to look like an old English pub style, like the bricks in this photo. And then the next thing I do is I take my brown paint and I kind of sponge over in different spots. And I don't want it to be really thick, or I want it to kind of be a little bit here and a little bit there to kind of give it a more realistic look. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of white paint and I'm going to really water it down. And then I'm going to just use my thumb and I'm just going to flick some white speckles over that brick. Okay, and just so you know, I did not wait in between coats to allow for any one of these coats to dry. Although in this situation you could, but I like it if they kind of mix a little bit because I feel like it gives it a more realistic look. The Garfield dollhouse I have built a couple times, and what I always dislike about the roof line in the back where it's open is that some of the wood is a little, like, you can't really see. It's in the way. So if you look there, I have drawn a black line on that chimney piece to the outside of the dollhouse, and I'm just going to cut that piece out. And the reason I'm going to do that is so that you can see better, so you could reach in better, and we'll take a look at what that looks like at the end. Okay, so now it's time to get out my all-purpose joint compound. And these are all the roof lines in the interior of the pub. I'm going to start slapping this joint compound on each piece and making sure that it's nice and even, but also I am making it a little thinner to the edges because they need to go together, and I don't want the joint compound being so thick that they don't fit well. Now what I'm going to do is, while that is semi-drying, not completely, I'm going to go back in and I'm just going to tape up the areas where the roof lines will hit, where the joint compound will go up against the brick and the wood, and that's just to keep that joint compound from rubbing up on there and getting on the other work that I've done. And also, once the roof is on, there might be areas that I missed, and so I'll be able to put a little bit of joint compound on there from the inside, and the blue tape will keep me from kind of making a big mess. Okay, and I did need to add a little joint compound in a few little corners, nooks and crannies. All right, and then that's what the finished outcome looks like. So now the next step is just to wait for that to dry. I'm going to have a cup of coffee and just wait for that to dry. And this is the finished outcome so far. So we still have plenty to do. There is still tons to do, but I am liking the way that it's looking so far. And every step that I take forward to finishing this room, I'm getting more and more excited about the outcome. Go ahead and comment, like, subscribe down below. Make sure that you do subscribe so that you get part 3, which will be next week. And in the meantime, get back to your own dollhouse projects, and I'll see you next time. Bye!